Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Matt DeLockery. Well, we finally made it to the end of the Kalam cosmological argument. For those of you who have never heard this before, it can be a lot to take in, so congratulations for making it. Let's see where we've ended up. Up to this point, we've done two things. First, we've shown that whatever begins to exist has a cause. This, if you remember, was the first premise, or first statement, in the argument. The second thing we've done is that we've shown that the universe began to exist. We did this with two philosophical arguments and two scientific arguments, even though we spent a lot more time on the scientific arguments. Now let's put those two premises together, whatever begins to exist has a cause, and the universe began to exist, and see where it takes us. This takes us logically to the conclusion that the universe had a cause. What is interesting about this is the logic of it. You can't actually escape the conclusion. If you want to avoid the conclusion that the universe had a cause, you have to go back and show that we were wrong about one of the two premises. That's why we spent so long going over them in detail. Because when we get here, we want to know the conclusion is well-founded. Great, so the universe had a cause. That's God, right? Not so fast. We took our time trying to make sure all the foundations were solid. It would be a shame if we just slapped the house together on top of it. We're going to do this with the same level of reason and evidence that we've been using up to this point. There are, I think, 6 things that we can know about the cause of the universe. These primarily, though not entirely, come out of the nature of the Big Bang. In other words, because the Big Bang is the way it is, we can know something about the cause behind it. So, let's cover these one by one. First, this cause must be immaterial. The reason for this is that all matter came into existence with the Big Bang. There was nothing before the Big Bang. It's common for people to think of the Big Bang as sort of a super dense pellet, just existing in empty space, which then exploded into being. Except that's not how the Big Bang theory works. There was no super dense pellet. There was no matter. There was nothing. Or, more precisely, there was not anything. We could also say it is false to say that there was something. Now, this is not just me talking, this is what the Big Bang Theory actually says. All matter came into existence with the Big Bang. Second, this cause must be spaceless. In other words, it's not spatially extended, or it doesn't actually take up any physical space. Like the last point, all space began with the Big Bang. Not only was there not a superdense pellet, that pellet was not floating in empty black space. There was no space. Space itself began with the Big Bang. So whatever this cause is, it must not take up any physical space. Third, this cause must be timeless. Time also began with the Big Bang. It's not like there's a timeline with negative numbers and the Big Bang starts at 0. The Big Bang does start at 0, but there was no -1. So it's not even accurate to say something like this cause existed before the Big Bang, because there was no before. What we instead say is without. The cause existed without the Big Bang, but it did not exist before the Big Bang. I know this sounds a little like grammatical nitpicking, but it actually makes a difference because of what it implies. Nothing existed before the Big Bang because there was no time. There was no before. Fourth, this cause must itself be uncaused. Here's why I say that. There's basically 2 options for the cause of the universe. Either it can itself be caused, or it can be uncaused. If the cause of the universe is caused, then we have to ask, what caused the cause? Now we can keep asking this question for as long as the cause has a cause, and the cause of the cause has a cause. And eventually we'll either hit a stopping point, in which case we have an uncaused cause, which is what we're talking about, or we'll have an infinite regress of causes. But this last one doesn't work, because if you remember, we already talked about the impossibility of an absolutely infinite number of things existing, as well as the fact that even if they did exist, one could never get from one side to the other. An absolutely infinite regress of causes, which is what these would be, cannot exist. At some point, there must have been a first cause, and that's the cause we're talking about. Besides that, Occam's razor says that we shouldn't multiply causes beyond necessity. So if there's no reason or evidence to suggest that there's a further cause behind this cause that we're already talking about, we shouldn't suggest that one exists. So, since an infinite regress of causes is impossible, and there's no reason to multiply causes beyond necessity, rather than say that the cause of the universe itself had a cause, it makes better sense to say that it was uncaused. So, the cause of the universe itself was uncaused. Fifth, this cause must be unimaginably powerful. This one really should be obvious. Anything that makes the entire universe begin to exist is really powerful. Remember, this cause made time, space, and matter come into existence. I don't know about you, but that sounds like unimaginably powerful to me. Sixth, and finally, this cause must be personal. Now, I know this one sounds kind of out there. When I first heard this argument and was told that the cause of the universe had to be personal, I thought this was somewhere between a stretch and just plain silly. But if you bear with me for a few minutes, I think I can explain it. First of all, I said personal. I did not say the cause was a person. I don't mean to suggest that there's a human being beyond space and time creating everything. When I say this cause is personal, I simply mean that it has a will and is capable of making decisions. That's it. So, why do I think this cause is personal? The reason has to do with what we have already seen about the nature of the cause combined with the nature of the effect. Let me explain. We've been talking about a universe that is not eternal, right? Its past age is finite. It has not always existed. It had a beginning. Now, in what we're talking about, the universe is the effect, and we want to know something about the cause. We want to know what kind of cause can produce an effect that begins to exist. What makes this difficult is that the cause is not something that began to exist. The cause, if you remember, was uncaused. It has always existed. So the cause in this case is eternal. The question we have to ask then is what kind of eternal cause can produce a non-eternal effect? Probably the simplest way to explain it is with an example. Imagine you have a cannonball. You know, big heavy round thing they used to shoot out of cannons, and you place it on your bedroom mattress. What happens, besides the mattress getting dirty? The cannonball presses the mattress in, right? The cannonball is a cause, and the mattress being pressed in is the effect. Simple enough. So let's apply this to our situation. Suppose the cannonball and the mattress have existed from eternity past, and the cannonball has always been sitting on the mattress. In this case, you would have an eternal cause, the cannonball always sitting on the mattress, and you would have an eternal effect, the mattress being pressed in from eternity past. This is what would happen if you have an eternal cause that is impersonal. The cause would be eternal, and the effect would also be eternal. Now suppose that the mattress has existed from eternity past, and suppose further that you have also existed from eternity past. Since you are a personal being and capable of choice, you have the ability to put your hand on the mattress at any point in time and press the mattress down. You would be an eternal cause, but the effect would not have to be eternal. You could press your hand on the mattress from eternity past, or you could wait a while and do it later. You see, the point I'm trying to make is that if the eternal cause were impersonal, like the cannonball, then we would need to ask the question, why isn't the effect eternal? You know, the universe being eternal. If the cause has always been there, then the effect, the universe, should have always been there. But of course, we don't see an eternal universe. We see one that began to exist. However, if the cause were personal, then it could decide to create the universe, and so a universe that is finite in age could exist. So, since we have a cause that we have already determined is itself uncaused, and we see a universe that is finite in age, then it makes the most sense to say that the cause of the universe is personal. A personal cause is the only type of eternal cause that would not have to create an eternal effect. So now we have 6 different attributes of this cause of the universe. This cause is timeless, spaceless, immaterial, uncaused, unimaginably powerful, and personal. This sounds like what most theists refer to as God. Now, before you get too excited, while I think we can say that the cause of the universe is most likely a God, we cannot say exactly which God. This does not point specifically towards the Christian God. If you remember, when we started this series, I said that this argument was originally created by a Muslim scholar. The scientific evidence was added in modern times by a Christian, but this argument does not point either towards Allah or Yahweh specifically. At most, what this argument does is point towards some sort of creator God. Does that God interact in the world by performing miracles or answering prayers? From this argument, we don't know. Is that God the God of any particular religion, like Islam or Christianity? From this argument, we don't know. However, what this argument does do is show that there is good reason to believe that a deity exists apart from anyone's religious text. If you remember, I never used any religious text as a part of the argument. The only thing I used was philosophy and modern scientific data on the origin of the universe. The only time I even referred to any religious text was when I said that some scientists didn't like the Big Bang Theory because it sounded too much like Genesis. That wasn't evidence for or against the theory, it's just a historical fact. That really did happen. And to that point, I find it super ironic when I hear Christians complaining about the Big Bang Theory being anti-Christianity and atheists trying to use it to show why religion is unnecessary. Both groups have it backwards. The Big Bang Theory provides excellent evidence to think that the universe began to exist. And once a person thinks that the Big Bang Theory explains how our universe came into being, all you have to do is find out if they believe in cause and effect, which just about everybody does. As long as they do believe in cause and effect, then this argument takes them to a cause of the universe. And as we just saw, this cause is timeless, spaceless, immaterial, uncaused, unimaginably powerful, and personal. If that's not a God, I don't know what is. So if a person accepts the Big Bang Theory as well as cause and effect, they have basically accepted everything they need to believe that a God exists. And that, friends, is where we're going to leave things, because that's where the argument leaves things. Given everything that we have seen, I think it is reasonable to think that a God exists. But we haven't talked about which God or gods that might be. Don't worry, we'll get there, and sooner rather than later. So if you haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, be sure to do so you'll get notified when we get to that topic. And if you'd like this series on the existence of God, you might also take a look at the one I did a while back on the moral argument for God's existence. Thank you for sticking through this tough series, and remember, if you have any questions, you can ask me via Twitter at @MattDelacry or Facebook at facebook.com/MattDelacry. Talk to you later.